It's the afternoon of June the 24th, 1944, and Flight Lieutenant David Pop Hornell pilots his Catalina flying boat. He's on an anti-submarine patrol over the rough Norwegian seas when over the intercom, the port gunner asks,
"Hey, you seeing what I see on the port side?"
He checks to his left, and sure enough, in the distance, there's the distinct form of a U-boat floating in the sea.
"I sure do."
Hornell activates the action station's alarm, and the flying boat turns towards the enemy with 4 depth charges at the ready. Below, spotters in the German U-boat 1225 see the incoming aircraft and sound the alarm. Oberleutnant Sir Z. Ernst Sauerberg doesn't waste a second. The submarine turns in evasive maneuvers as twin 20mm cannons and a single 37mm flak cannon are turned towards the Catalina. The Catalina is rocked by 37mm flak. The plane's already shuddering under hits on the fuselage.
Cole, radio the base. Keep them updated. Copy that.
Hornell orders the radio operator, Sidney Cole, to tell the base their location and situation. But before Cole has a chance to send the first message, a flak shell punctures the radio compartment. Cole groans and puts pressure on his wound, but doesn't report it. Instead, he pushes through the pain and keys the transmission. Little does he know that the radio equipment has been damaged by the German fire. Hornell dives towards the target, unaware that none of their transmissions are being sent. As they get closer, 20mm cannons join the fray, and tracers zip all around. The impacts get ever more frequent, punching holes in the aircraft's thin skin.
Hold on.
The crew feel a violent shake and are horrified to see pieces of the right wing being torn off. Flak bursts by the right engine, and it starts shaking violently. Hornell fights with the aircraft as it starts to drift off course, the mounting damage making it ever harder to steer. At the nose of the aircraft, the front gunner opens fire at the U-boat with his twin 303 Brownings. Bullets rain around Sauerberg. The Catalina's fire zeroes in on the conning tower as they get closer. Sauerberg's men are struck, and the guns go silent. But the incoming fire is too accurate. The Germans can't move as the Catalina's machine guns rip into the conning tower. But then, one of the Catalina's guns jams. The U-boat commander, hearing the strike slow, seizes the opportunity. The crew jump into position and they open fire on the incoming Catalina. Hornell's blood runs cold as he sees once more a wall of tracers coming up at them. The Catalina's hit again with German fire ripping through the wings and fuselage. A glow comes from above, and Hornell looks up to see the damaged engine with flames gushing out of its cowling.
Starboard engine on fire. Shutting it down.
The second pilot shuts off the engine, but it doesn't stop the fuel leak. The ball of fire grows as a plane barrels towards the enemy submarine. Sauerberg is staring at a rapidly approaching ball of fire and orders evasive maneuvers. Above, Hornell is fully committed. Seeing the submarine turn left, he makes an adjustment at the last possible moment. And then he releases the depth charges. Below, Sauerberg watches the Catalina roar overhead as it drops its payload.
Gott im Himmel.
The depth charges splash perfectly around the submarine.
It's ahead. It's ahead.
The aircraft shakes even more violently. Hornell looks up at the flaming engine spinning in the wind. He sees it shake its own mounts apart. The rivets and bolts come undone. The fuel and parts of the engine rip away from the wing. Hornell knows they're not going to make it home.
We're going down. Brace yourselves, men.
The men all hold on, except Cole, who frantically signals SOS messages as Hornell prepares to land. The sea below is rough, but they've no other choice. Hornell turns his Catalina into the wind and prepares for landing. The floats lower, and the remaining engine is brought to idle. The waves only appear to get bigger as the plane gets closer to the surface.
Brace for impact.
Cole keeps keying SOS until the last possible moment, when he stops and braces for impact. The Catalina hits the first wave, but there's a strong headwind. The force bounces the airplane and it surges 150 feet back up into the air. Hornell wrestles with the controls, and in a split second, he aligns the Catalina for a second impact. They slam into the next wave, and the plane once again launches, reaching 50 feet before plunging back down towards the water. The still burning Catalina bursts through multiple waves before finally coming to a rest.
Get out!
Hornell urges on his men as he knows the Catalina can explode at any second. Flight engineer Donald Scott inflates a dinghy out of the left blister, while fellow engineer Fernand Laurent inflates one from the right.
You all get on board! I'll push it!
Hornell and some of the men jump into the freezing cold water to push the dinghy away. Cole bundles onto the dinghy and makes sure to secure the survival rations as the men start pushing. But then he remembers the radio.
Wait, the radio!
Hornell barely has time to understand what Cole has just said before Cole starts swimming back towards the Catalina.
What are you doing?
We need the radio. They won't find us.
Don't! It's too late!
Hornell is right. The men watch painfully as the Catalina is engulfed in flames and sinks under the waves. They begin helping one another onto the dinghy. The inside of the dinghy is already beginning to flood as the men try to board. Hornell uses a helmet to throw water overboard, but then there's a cry.
We're missing someone.
Hornell's filled with dread and immediately gets to the edge and counts the heads. There's only 7. There's meant to be 8.
It's Laurent!
Fighting down panic, Hornell scours the rolling waves for his missing man. They see nothing as the dinghy rises and falls in the heavy waves. They catch a glimpse of a second dinghy that's also cresting a wave in the distance.
There he is!
They push furiously through the swell, rushing to catch up with their friend. The men on the dinghy direct as they see their friend also paddling towards them. But then they crest another wave and see Laurent's dinghy empty.
Go faster!
They redouble their efforts and reach Laurent, who's managed to struggle back onto his dinghy. The relief of having 2 dinghies is palpable, and 2 of the crew move to get onto Laurent's dinghy. But then Laurent's dinghy explodes and drops the men into the ice-cold sea water. They all start to pile onto the remaining dinghy, but they can't fit. Hornell volunteers to stay in the freezing water with 2 more men.
Hang on. We sent those distress calls. Rescue will be here soon.
But he doesn't know that none of them were sent. For 3 hours, Hornell organizes a rotation, swapping who waits in the water. Hoping to delay hypothermia, Hornell assigns himself to stay in the freezing water the longest. But it's unbearable. His strength is fading.
We have to figure out how to get everyone aboard.
Look, there!
An aircraft is spotted in the sky. It's another Catalina.
Get the flare gun!
The flare fires off into the sky, lingering in the air for a minute before falling into the sea. But the Catalina keeps on its path.
Another!
They send out a second flare, and yet again, the aircraft doesn't react.
Come on! Come on! Another!
A third flare is shot into the air. Seconds drag on. And finally,
They saw us!
the Catalina turns towards them.
We have survivors adrift. 63 degrees north, 0 degrees, 30 minutes west. Unable to land due to bad weather. We need a boat.
Over 100 miles away in the Shetland Islands, rescue boat HSL 2507 is deployed. The Catalina stays circling over the stranded men, and they signal in Morse code. High speed launch on the way, help coming. Then sometimes later it signals, U-boat killed. The men cheer. They might just make it out of this. Every wave is torture, and they're having trouble holding on. A wave lifts up their dinghy and throws the entire crew overboard. Hornell emerges from the water, disoriented. The dinghy's getting pushed by the wind, and his men lay scattered around him. He clings to the lifeboat, counting heads.
Everyone's here?
They struggle to turn it over in heavy waves, and one by one, they help each other climb aboard and rebuild their barely stable setup. Water starts to fill the dinghy, and without the bucket and their strength fading, the small dinghy floats lower and lower, partially submerging some of the men in the freezing sea. The situation is desperate. Hornell's vision starts to blur. The men huddle in search of any warmth. Laurent starts to go delirious.
Laurent? Stay awake. Please. Laurent!
Hornell and his men try to talk with him to keep him focused. But it's no use. He's gone. The men are devastated. Hornell makes a difficult decision to push Laurent's body overboard. Up above, the Catalina's running out of fuel. There's no choice. The crew radios the men's position one last time and turns for home. The men stifle back tears as they watch their hope fly away. They float alone in the sea. But then they see something in the sky. It's a huge aircraft. The men perk up. They start waving their hands and they see a big bomber turn towards them. It drops something from its belly. The men watch. It's a wooden boat. But the wind is strong and the boat gets carried away, flying off until it disappears from sight behind a wave. They bob up and down in the waves and see it floating 500 yards away.
Let's swim. We can make it.
No, it's too
Despite being completely blind from the salt water and having no idea where the boat is, Hornell drags himself towards the water. The men swim after him, reaching out, grabbing his arms, trying to hold him back. Hornell pleads, but his men know it's no use, and they watch their lifeboat float away. A spotlight appears over the waves, illuminating the men. The rescue boat has finally arrived.
Contact. We found them.
After 21 long hours, the survivors of the Catalina are pulled from the sea. Laying on the dinghy, Hornell looks up, staring through his blurred eyes at the scene of his men being lifted out of the water. A sense of accomplishment washes over him, and with the last of his strength, he musters the smallest of smiles. His eyes close, never to open again. The sailors on the rescue boat attempt to revive him for 4 hours, but it's no use. Thanks to Hornell, 5 survivors would all make a full recovery and survive the war. David Ernest Hornell was posthumously awarded the Victoria Cross, and it was received by his wife. Of his late commander, second pilot Denomi later stated, "Outstanding about Flight Lieutenant Hornell was his marvelous ability in flying such a badly damaged aircraft, especially in the face of strong enemy fire. His courage and bravery throughout marked him as a great man. Words cannot do justice to the fine job he's done."
Poor souls. Those U-boat hunters have a devil of a job. Have you heard how an American destroyer had a fist fight with the U-boat crew? Watch this story and see the whole thing.